Good morning. Welcome to the other mob morning briefing live. Sorry, the Celtic Way morning briefing live. Correct myself there. It's Thursday the 23rd of February. How are we all doing? I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10. As you know, the Twitter handle went out, and I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW. How are you, Sean?
I'm not bad, Tony. Aye, yourself?
I'm okay. First things first, I'll direct you to the strap line running along the bottom. And if you subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality journalism, it will cost you £1 for 2 months for unlimited access to everything that we write on the site, covering the club you love. Click of a button, guys. You know what I'm going to say. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It'll cost you £1 for 2 months of unlimited access to everything on the site. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to our sponsor, SENECA, and the Celtic Way morning briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Sean, the countdown's on. We're nearly there.
Well and truly on.
There. Slowly but surely. Hello, everyone. Says Helen. Hello, everybody. Jam Mac. Hail. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Is it not Thursday? I'm sure it's Thursday, isn't it? Morning all. Yep. But there you have it. So, Sean, I had a wee joke there in the intro. we were talking off air about, and it's in the title of the briefing, some disrespectful comments. I was alluding to Fashion Sakala yesterday, who in his press briefing referred to Celtic as the other mob. Now, I don't know where you stand on that, Sean. I don't particularly get wound up or bothered about these things, but I don't know. I think that airs on a bit disrespectful, surely.
I mean, it's kind of aye, but listen, I think it'll be water off a duck's back to the manager and the senior players and stuff. I don't mind it myself personally. Anywhere, I suppose, anywhere a wee bit of needle can be put out there that goes beyond the usual platitudes and all that kind of stuff is decent. I don't mind it all that much, to be honest. I thought that was funny though. The other mob morning briefing.
Now, Sean, am I old-fashioned? Do they still pin things up in the dressing room wall, newspaper reports to motivate yourself? Is that an old school thing?
Probably just share it in the WhatsApp group now.
Possibly, that's the new pinning up of an article on the dressing room wall for motivation. Yeah. As I say, I tend not to get too perturbed about these things, Sean. And Fashion Sakala can have his thoughts about Celtic all he wants. We'll see what part of the other mob turns up on Sunday then, Sean.
Well, Brian Roberts says that. He says, "Morning, guys, we will just play our game and ignore the hype." And included in that hype is obviously things like these wee comments from Sakala. I'm going to put this up by Beach Boys, Tony.
Yeah.
He says, "Children get brought up, act and speak, watching and listening to their parents. Players act and speak in the manner of their manager." Now, we know that's true from Celtic's point of view because we often have sat here over the past 18 months and said you can hear the manager and what so-and-so saying in a press conference and all that. Do you think Beach Boys has got a point that that's the kind of flippant comment that maybe Michael Beale's prone to throwing out there?
I think you're connecting dots here, aren't you? And we have spoken at length about the fact that whenever Matt O'Reilly spoke, we heard echoes of the manager. The other day, I thought Cameron Carter-Vickers, echoes of the manager, and various others whenever they do their press duties, and they speak very much like the manager. If that's the way Rangers want to go about their business and speak like their manager, or those players speaking whatever way they want, then so be it. It's clearly their business. We're concerned with Celtic business, aren't we? But I just thought I would bring it up because, I'm sure it's something that Ange won't give two hoots about. Isn't that right?
Well, that's what Derek Crawford says here. Ange won't even mention it to the players. You've got, speaking of people talking like the manager and stuff, You've got Hazel Finn coming in here saying she thinks the Sakala comment will rile up the boys, will work in their favour. But you've got Podrick here saying our talking will be done on the field, which sounds a wee bit Postecoglou-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, that's. I think that would be manager speak, wouldn't it? He would say he wouldn't pay any attention to it and just tell his players to be focused. Laser focused, I think, is the phrase that's been associated with Celtic in recent times, isn't it? And I think Celtic will remain laser focused for Sunday's cup final. Now, one man who should be playing in the cup final is Kyogo.
Mm-hmm. You're not going to go to Mike. You're not going to go Michael Beale first, no? I thought we were disrespectful comments were on the agenda, Tony.
I thought to Michael Beale. I just think
disrespectful comments was there.
Michael Beale has a problem saying the word Celtic, does he not?
Well, aye, potentially. To be fair, I don't know if I would say his comments were disrespectful as much as just disingenuous. With the whole 2 of the last 4 trophies were handed to Rangers spiel. I mean, he was obviously wrong factually. Just factually wrong. It's 1 and 4 because St Johnstone won the Scottish Cup, Celtic won the League Cup and then the League, and then Rangers won the Scottish Cup. But even the point he was trying to make was wrong, which is why I think it was disingenuous rather than disrespectful. Because presumably the point he was trying to make was that that maybe the preeminent team in the country is up for debate, and it's not, Tony. And it's not been up for debate for 11 years.
No, I think there was the smaller point or the wider point that he was trying to make, and I think he just sort of got it all wrong, didn't he? And I mean, as I say, I've not really been too focused on what Michael Beale said. The Sakala one just jumped out at me, obviously. But as I say, Michael Beale can say what he likes, and he likes to talk a lot.
He very much does like to talk, guy. Rob Monte coming in here. I know you touched on it yesterday, but how awkward was Ange and Michael Beale in that 30-second meeting, Tony? You were there. I mean, they always do the thing with the trophy. They always do that.
Yeah.
But it was a bit odd that they had them sitting at the same table like a boxing press conference type of thing.
Yeah, and it was even odder that they never shared any dialogue whilst they were sitting at the table, and I found that a bit strange. But each to their own. They can do what they like. But I just found that a bit odd. But Michael Beale did say during it that there was a good relationship between the two of them, and they were pretty respectful of each other. So that's fair enough. But I just found that whole setup, and as I say, Twitter went into meltdown because everybody thought it was a joint press conference. I just hadn't seen that before. As you say, that kind of boxing type setup where the two of them sit, but it was just clearly for a photo call. But then they took them outside to do the photos beside the trophy. So
hey, listen, whoever's idea it was at Viaplay, it worked.
Yeah, of course, they got what they wanted out of it, and they got all the memes for the facial expressions of the two managers sitting at the table side by side. So, I guess it was a good call by the sponsors Viaplay, wasn't it, to put them together at the table like that. But yeah, but again, I was more kind of interested in the fact that they. Normally if you sit down, you would turn to them and say something. There was no words, and I can only assume they'd spoken on the way in. I mean,
to be fair, I mean, they're both football men at their core. I'd imagine they have got a lot of points in common in terms of discussions and stuff. But then you've got, one of them in particular that's prone to a wee comment in the media and stuff. So I don't imagine that gets down well with Ange overall because he doesn't really use the media as a vehicle for that. But listen, Again, to be fair to Michael Beale, he is a rookie manager. He is just getting used to all this. He might temper that kind of stuff when he's been doing it as long as Ange's been doing it, that kind of stuff.
And I also refer to every press conference, Ange is usually asked what kind of challenge he'll face from his opponents. And to my knowledge, he always says that it's going to be a tough challenge, and he also name checks whatever manager he's playing against. Like if it's David Martin, he'll call him David. He'll call them Steve if it's man, and so on and so forth. And then he'll give you a wee synopsis of how they're playing. He'll say they're on a good run. They've won 3-3 or whatever, or they've not been doing so well of late, but that doesn't mean to say that it's going to be easy type thing. And he always says we're respectful of every opponent. He makes a point of saying that in every press conference, to my knowledge, because he has always asked about what do you expect from the team you're facing. And so I'll big up Ange for that, because I've heard that many times. And he always, which usually always counters with, if we play our brand of football, we'll be hard to stop. That usually ends in that kind of spiel and scenario.
I know, I don't disagree. We've transcribed enough pressers over the last 18 months. To kind of get that.
Yeah, so and Keimatsu says it here. Ange always finds something positive to say about it. He does. I've kind of noticed that. Regardless if they're on a bad run, he'll pick something out. Like they've got players that can help us. We'll need to be wary, in the final third or in the midfield or whatever. So yeah, it was a strange presser, wasn't it, in terms of kind of setup and all that. But I, as we've spoken about off air, I thought the manager was terrific value.
Well, I mean, anybody that's on Twitter will have seen that Tony's questions been doing the rounds and stuff. The one we were talking about on here before he went along and Tuesday, and I was delighted with the answer he gave you, Tony. I thought it was a great answer. To the extent that we've ended up agreeing that you'll do a wee piece based on just his answer to just your question in that presser rather than any of the other ones.
Yes.
So I keep your eyes peeled for that. It'll either later today, maybe tomorrow. But certainly in the build-up to the game anyway.
Excellent. Now, speaking of the game, Sean, we'll now get to Kyogo Furuhashi, because I jumped the gun a wee bit there, but hey, yeah, that's what happens. But looks like Kyogo's going to play, isn't he, Sean? He made a quick recovery. As soon as the manager said he's a quick healer, I was like, he's going to play in the cup final until it kind of... And then he was on the bench last week, angry that he wasn't playing, and then got a wee cameo role, so got some minutes. But yeah, now Kyogo's been in the news because he was speaking in Germany, wasn't he? Talking about the fact that he's not the complete player, or he's not a great player. He said, actually, didn't he? He said he's not a great player. Not a great player, and he needs to work on things like his timing for a pass and his running, and also work on all sorts of finishes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but I think that's everything that I've seen from Kyogo since he arrived, and he's pretty good at it, to be fair. So if he's saying he's no great, then if he says he can improve, all players can improve, then I'm looking forward to the new Kyogo. And he says he's targeted 30 goals this season, so that's not beyond him, is it?
No. Well, right, first of all, I think it's exactly the type of comments I'd want to hear from someone who is your top scorer and has a shout to be termed the star player in any given week. Doesn't necessarily surprise me though, because everything about his game and his character, for what you see on the park, suggests he's a hard-working guy with a really, really good attitude. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that he's saying, I can still get better, I can still do this better, I can still improve here, and I need to work hard and all that kind of stuff. You're right, he's saying he'd like to hit 30 goals, and it's not often you hear a striker actually put a number on it. He's saying he'd like to hit 30, Tony, but I'm going to pull him up on that one, right? Because realistically, that's just 8 goals in his final 14 to 16 games that he's predicting, depending on Scottish Cup progress, obviously. So I think secretly with the scoring form that he's in, he'll probably fancy topping that 30, not just reaching 30.
No, definitely.
I think I said this the other week, but I double-checked it again. His longest scoreless streak, right, this season is 4 games, and that was away back in September. But even then, one of those games was when he get 5 minutes against the Rangers in the derby, the 4-0 game, and he get taken off injured. So it's not really fair to count that as one of the 4. Sure. And the next game was 20 minutes against Real Madrid. So even to say 4-game scoreless streak is overplaying it. So fundamentally, if he's sitting there saying, "Oh, I can get better," what will the SPFL defenders be thinking, Tony? Probably breaking out in a bigger sweat than they do chasing him about the park.
Well, it was that kind of deadpan and droll expression last week that somebody said Hatate's hit a level, a brilliant level, and Hans Postecoglou says, yeah, but he can get better. He has to. He wants to. We want him to. So I guess that's coming from the manager again. So Kyogo, obviously, despite hitting some dizzy heights in his Celtic career so far, the manager will probably say to him, you've got other levels. And as you say, the humility and the work ethic about him suggests that he knows he's got other levels. And as you also suggested there, if you're a defender, you're thinking, surely not. This guy, I remember writing a piece about the 7 defenders that played against Larson, and I'll come on to that. There's a link there with that, and they just said it was nigh impossible because he would vanish into thin air. And I think Kyogo, and that's the premise of the piece that I'm going to put in the comment section with John Hartson. He's not comparing them, but he's saying there's like similar traits with the dart to the front post for the kind of goals that he's profited from with the whip ball in. And John Hartson said he used to run to the back post and nod things down for Henrik, and he knew if he got his head to a cross that went to the back post, Henrik would be there to score, because Henrik was just had unbelievable timing and could make room in the box despite if it was crowded or whatever. So that's what Hartson's saying. Larson would gamble, and he's saying that's what Kyogo does. He gambles with those early balls in, and he's more often than not he's there to put it in the net and profit from a ball coming across. He was talking about that kind of style, and he was saying that he actually loves his movement. So it's interesting to see that Hartson's saying that, we're saying that, but yet Kyogo's saying I can always improve my movement and my availability for a pass and all that. So I'm like you, Sean. I love that in players.
I'm going to. I've put up a few comments while you were talking there, but I'm going to put this one. It's kind of a differing view of what Kyogo's saying, right? So Plunge McNugget says he thinks he's at the mind games first and foremost, but Scott McGill says he thinks it's the words of a humble player who is still disappointed that he didn't get to the World Cup. And I think Scott's got a good point, because I would have been really disappointed, been in and about that squad for months, if not a couple of years at that point. And I know he dropped out through injury last season when he was out for Celtic, but it would have been really, really disappointing. And I know he still thinks he's got another World Cup cycle in him to maybe get himself back in the frame, and there's the Asia Cup starting next year and all that'll presumably be a kind of almost a dress rehearsal for it. And if he continues to score at the rate he's scoring for Celtic, he probably will be in it. But I think Scott's got a point that, given he wasn't selected for the World Cup and the type of character that he is, his first thing was to look himself in the mirror and say, right, would I need to improve to be back in there the next time it rolls round? And I think that's a great attitude to have. And I think you see it on the park with him anyway, that's his attitude.
He's used it as fuel, hasn't he? To spur him on to bigger and greater things. And hopefully he does get the chance to play in a World Cup. It would be a shame if he didn't. But certainly Celtic are reaping the benefit of that, aren't they? They've got a Kyogo who's determined to get better, alongside other players like Hatate as well, with a manager who's constantly telling them that they can get better. And
that's it, man.
I think if you have that, kind of mixture in the dressing room, then it all bodes well, because you always think that you can improve, and the manager's always telling you that. And I think that's a brilliant message. You never come from. I think Anne said it yesterday, that if they think that winning a trophy affords them some luxury, we spoke to him in the auditorium after he won the League Cup, Sean, and he was already thinking about the next game, wasn't he? He was asked, would he go home and have a drink and enjoy it? He said, I'll maybe do that, depends. But he said, we've got a game, whatever day it was, and just thinking, wow, just relentless.
Got to remember at that point with the situation he was in with the league, I think he knows full well it wouldn't, although everybody would have forgiven him for saying, I will celebrate the night, blah, blah, blah. It's a great achievement, because it was a great achievement. I think he was kind of conscious of the fact that the league situation means we've got to be right back on it. We can't really, and I think he was conscious of that. But Derek Crawford coming in saying very truthful about Kyogo's comments. He does miss a lot of chances also, Tony, but brilliant attitude. Now, we've said this for basically since he arrived, that he is prone to missing a chance, but he does, despite all that, see the chances that he gets across a season, he still outperforms his XG, so he still scores from the chances that he gets more goals than you would expect, if you want to put it that way, statistically speaking. But he is prone to missing a good chance, Tony, before he maybe scores one.
Yeah, and I think maybe in his mind is also his performance in the Champions League when he drew a blank, and I think a lot of that a lot of his comments are maybe based on that, and I think that's probably the arena that he wants to get better in, doesn't it? And wants to improve and wants to score at that high level should Celtic manage to win the league and gain automatic entry into the Champions League again. So I think a lot of his comments are maybe based on that, and the fact that he missed out on the World Cup finals, and the two could be correlated, couldn't they? Because the manager could have been watching them at that level in the 6 games that Celtic played in the Champions League group stages, and maybe based part of his non-selection of Kyogo on that. You don't know, do you? But it's a fair assumption to, as I say, join some of those dots up.
Well, put it this way, right? When I wrote the newsletter a few weeks ago now, just mentioning that a year from now, at the end of January, mid to the end of January, Celtic could be in a position where a heap of players are away at the Asia Cup, and they can actually ask for a postponement if international players that are likely to play in your match days that overlap with a call up that's out with that is a FIFA window, which it will be. Then you can ask for a postponement. I suspect Ange Postecoglou wouldn't. I suspect he'd say this is a chance for the guys that weren't playing before to come in and stake a claim. I think that's what he would do, but we'll see next year. But put it this way, in terms of the Japan squad, it was obviously Maeda that got the World Cup call. The way Real Hatate's playing, the way Kyogo's playing, and then you've got Kobayashi and Iwata sitting there, and I know technically the Gucci's there as well, but he's away on loan, but you know what I mean, he's still a Celtic player. But you could have a handful of players just in that Japan squad from Celtic, and if all goes to plan, that is what you would want to see, because it means that they've been playing and playing well for Celtic in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely. That's what you want, without a doubt. And the manager encourages that, doesn't he? He wants them to go and represent their country because he thinks there's no better honour, and he should know because he's been the Australian national team manager, and he loved it, and led Australia to their first ever major trophy win, the Asian Cup. So if anybody encouraging these players to perform at their peak levels and gain international honours, it's Ange Postecoglou, isn't it?
A couple of ones here just before we move on from Kyogo. Pete McGee saying Kyogo can only miss a lot of chances if we're creating even more. Good point. Gary McDowell saying, like, the overarching thing, what a message it sends to the rest of the team if Kyogo of all players is still saying, no, I can get better, and I agree with that. I like that kind of attitude from I was going to say from your leaders in the squad, but a leader doesn't necessarily need to be the captain, or it could be just one of the star players, one of your first names in the team sheet. If their attitude is I can get better, and their attitude is a team first thing, it rubs off on other people, and it rubs off on people that just come in, and youngsters coming through and all of that. I agree with that. I think Gary's made a great point there. I've got to put Pete McGee back up as well, Tony, because he says, Sean, stop saying pressers or I'll start calling Celtic Parkers. Fair point. You can't be having Parkers. That's definitely worse than pressers.
No, that's a no.
Definitely worse.
It's Celtic Park. Even Parkhead kind of, but Celtic Park for me always.
Man, I don't.
Parkhead,
everybody I know calls it Parkhead.
Well, so Celtic Park for me always. Now, before we go on to the next one, getting a lot of messages about the death of John Motson, Sean.
Yep.
And we say the voice of football for lots of generations on the BBC. Derek Crawford, I think, asked me if I'd ever met him. Sadly, I didn't meet John Motson. Love to have met him. I think he's just one of those guys who's synonymous with English football, and send our condolences to the Motson family. He is and will be remembered. A long service and long years of football commentary, and the voices were always John Motson or Barry Davis, these kind of guys. But my favourite John Motson line, or two of them certainly, came in the same game when the final whistle went in the 1988 FA Cup final. And he came away with that brilliant line, the crazy gang have beaten the culture club. And he also said, as Dave Besant lifted the trophy, it's a weird and wonderful world if you come from Wimbledon. Probably well-rehearsed ad-libs that he'd written down, but got to get the timing spot on, Sean, and he did that day. And yeah, rest in peace, John Motson. You were a shining light to a lot of football supporters and guided them through and talked them through many a good football moment. So, yeah.
Match of the day, Tony. Match of the day sticks out for me with him, but also, this is maybe my age, but also when he was doing the FIFA commentary for the games, PS2, PS2, they've been PS2, PS3, so sticks out for that as well. Alan Wood's voice of English football in his generation, he says.
Every England game he was commentating on, it was either him or Barry Davis on the BBC, so you just knew they were going to make it sound wonderful, even if it wasn't, so, but yeah, Motti, I think he was known as, wasn't he? But
yep, man. A couple of things before we Pardon me, before we wrap up, Tony, a couple of questions here. JP says, what was the pitch like at Hampden? It wasn't looking good the last time. Now, you were there, and I've seen pictures, and it looks better.
It's better, but do you know what? There was, at one point I was standing in the stand, and the lights were on it, and there was bits of it which I thought still looked a bit ropey, and they had the kind of the light stuff that they do with it and all that. So, and Ange Postecoglou and Michael Beale had said they kind of walked across it. They both said it was certainly in better nick, but Michael Beale said that Rangers had the misfortune of playing the second game in that weekend, and it was pretty poor. So he's just thinking anything will be an improvement from that day when they played Aberdeen. And Ange Postecoglou said that you want the pitch to be in good nick because it's part of the spectacle. And he said he wanted it to be, in a good condition. But I think it's certainly better. But I don't think it'll be much improved. But I don't think it's kind of like a Bowling Green or lush or the way you want to say that. But I don't think it could have looked any worse than those two semi-finals. It was pretty poor looking, wasn't it? It came across when you saw it in the TV pictures.
Sorry, Derek Crawford coming in quickly saying it's a draw tonight for the final tickets. It's today at some point, and the winner will be contacted. So might even announce it. Well, we'll say tomorrow. If their name getting put out. But yep. A couple of other questions. We've actually a couple of questions about the Asia Cup because I mentioned it there as well, Tony. Alan Wood saying is the Asia Cup going to be in January now? And K Matsu come back and says they're still kicking dates about. They are. I'll put the article I wrote about it in because it all still applies because they've not confirmed the date yet. But the last couple of kind of reports suggested, I think it was Reuters, suggested it was going to be the end of January. So the I think it was the 24th of January was the date that was kind of on or around there that they're looking at, which doesn't fall in with the SPFL winter break because the dates have already been confirmed for that for next year. Right. The break is basically after when the derby is expected to be January the 2nd. So fixture round 22 that would be, and then the SPFL would the Premiership would break. Celtic would be off until the 19th. But naturally, if the Asia Cup's then at the end of January, then you're coming back from that break and players already be away to it. So this is basically that article explains it all in the situation they could find themselves in. Last one, I think, unless anybody else has got another couple of questions, but it's Alan Woods again, and he says, are Moy and Turnbull back training again? Now, Ange addressed that directly.
It would be.
Addressed that directly, and he said they're expected to be back in training later this week. Now, he said that on Tuesday, obviously, so you'd expect that to have come to pass either yesterday or today. So they're expected to be available, Tony?
Yeah, but he did say they would be joining training and to all intents and purposes, and as far as he was aware, they would be available for selection. So take from that what you will, unless, like everything else, they have setbacks in training, and that can happen, can't it, when they've missed something. But no, he fully expects them to be part of that Cup final day squad.
So I'm still getting Asia Cup questions. Antonio's rightly pointing out that that technically isn't an official FIFA international window. And he's right to say at least not yet, because there is in the FIFA calendar, there is an Asia Cup window, but obviously that was their initial date. So the expectation is that whenever they arrange it for and agree with FIFA, it will get moved and it will be an official window because of the nature of the tournament. So at that point, that would kick in that Celtic could technically ask for a postponement. But again, as I say, just from what I hear from Ange Postecoglou, I don't know if he would do that. I think he would say it's time for the other members of the squad to step forward. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes to it. Ideally, Alan Woods is right, and it ends up a wee bit earlier, and it does fall in the winter break. And maybe it's only the first game back or something that you're missing people that go deep in the tournament. But the thing is with the Celtic players, you've got Australia, South Korea, and Japan. They're all want to go deep in that tournament. They're all not wanting to be group stage exits. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see.
Course. Now, Sean, we will be endeavouring to pick an 11 tomorrow, a Cup final 11, won't we? And we picked our best 11 the other day, didn't we? And we put it in.
We did. Two different questions though, as we were discussing in the group chat, weren't we, Tony? Me, you, and Aidan. Strongest 11, not necessarily the 11 that we think will play on Sunday, because that is a predicted 11 for a specific game, and there was actually quite a lot of disagreement, more disagreement than I thought there would be.
Correct. That's what the
the
bell
311s you put there in front of me. I'll put the link to it in the comments. But you'll have seen it if you subscribe to the newsletter, which is free. And you'll have seen it on the site the next day also. That would have been free because it was a wee pub debate, Tony, wasn't it, really?
It was indeed. But it was a pub debate without the pub part, wasn't it, to be fair?
Unfortunately,
yeah, indeed. So there you go. But we'll need to work on that, I think, Sean. But also, like to say to people tomorrow, we're going to have a guest with us tomorrow, aren't we, Sean?
We have got a special guest on for the preview and prediction special, yep.
And looking forward to having him on, aren't we?
Aye, it'll be good. It's a big one though, isn't it? It'll be a full house tomorrow. Full house. Lots of predictions flying about. Lots of probably Team 11 disagreements.
Be like a game of Celebrity Squares tomorrow with the four musketeers, I would have thought. So that'll be fun. Might go longer, Sean, because it's a big game, isn't it? Oh, special guest. There you go.
Just before we wrap up on the subject of the newsletter, Tony, I also want to direct them to something that you've put on the site, which, I mean, strictly speaking, and I wrote this in the introduction to the newsletter, strictly speaking, it's not actually anything to do with Celtic. No. But you happen to be talking to this person, and it's the anniversary of the film Trainspotting's release back in 1996, 27 years ago today. So we thought, why not do a wee bit for the newsletter on it? And I know it's not to do with Celtic, but it's a cult film. It's one of my favourite films, one of my favourite books as well. So I'll put the link in the comments, and I mean, give it a wee read. And as I say, I know it's nothing to do with Celtic, but hopefully you still enjoy it.
Yeah, it was great fun to talk to him about that that particular moment. I think people maybe guess who it is from the link there. And he's always great value when he talks, and he spoke very well about that. Kind of became a star, didn't he? a reluctant movie star through his voice. There you go.
Let's just say, Tony, I haven't felt that good since Tony Haggerty wrote about Trainspotting in February 23rd.
Or you haven't felt that good since Tony Haggerty introduced the morning briefing as the other morning briefing. Something like that, yeah. On that note, guys, we'll be back tomorrow. Have a terrific Thursday. See you hopefully for a fantastic Friday with our guest as well. But Sean, first class as always. Thank you to the comments, guys. Good luck if you're in the draw for the tickets. Good luck. Somebody's going to win them, and hopefully we'll even get to meet you if that's the case. We would like that. But yes, we roll on. I say it every day, don't I? Thursday, Friday. 3 sleeps, Sean. 3 sleeps. If you're that way inclined and a big Wayne like me, basically. I think that's the phrase, isn't it? But thank you, guys. Couldn't do it without you. Really enjoy it. Take care.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.